Hello, welcome everybody. This is Neil with Portal to Ascension, and you are now tuning in to Awarewolf Radio podcast. And I'm joined by my good friend and co-host here, Justin DeChamps. How you doing, brother?
Good, Neil. Good to be back. It's been a while since we had the chance, huh?
Yeah, man, I miss you, bro.
Same. Hope everything's okay over there.
Everything is good. So what's going on with you, man? How is life?
Life's been great. I actually had the chance to take more than like a day off for the first time in 5 years. Went to Arizona, went to Sedona, and oh my God, it feels great.
Sedona.
Yeah, it was beautiful over there. So, yeah, feeling really good. You know, it's a lot of crazy stuff in the world, but a lot of awakening, a lot of amazing news happening. A really great time to be alive. So lots to talk about for sure. How about something with you?
Just same, man. I went on 2 vacations. I actually went to Vegas. Did I tell you that?
No kidding, really?
Yeah, went to Vegas, bro, because it was my friend's birthday, Robert's girlfriend's birthday, and she was like, "We're going to Vegas for a week. What are you doing this weekend?" And we said nothing, and it's 2.5 hours drive, so we went there because I wanted to check out how it was during COVID. We got pictures of like freaking Vegas deserted, and pretty much the only thing open are casinos, bars, and restaurants. So all we did was sleep and eat, right?
Right.
And we went to karaoke, but it was interesting, just like a whole different dynamic, freaking plexiglass in between every single person gambling, people having to wear gloves when they're gambling. It was extremely interesting.
Really? Yeah, that must have been a trip. Oh my God.
So then a week after that, we went to Monterey. We hung out there for a bit by the ocean. And right now is a good time to travel, actually, because many things are cheaper than they're going to be, when things start happening again.
Yeah, I heard that too. The airline tickets are just like rock bottom right now. So definitely a good time to travel.
So as we were checking in with each other earlier today, guys, there's a lot going on in the world right now. And I've been anticipating this podcast with Justin for the last week because I've just been waiting to kind of talk to you, Justin, about everything that's happening. And it seems that some of the things that even I touched on maybe like a week ago or came across a week ago, it's completely not even relevant now because we've moved on so fast. Things are just moving so rapidly. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, I'm trying to keep up with the news just as because part of my job to run stillness. And I mean, I'm actually on Twitter a lot more because Twitter is a pretty good way to keep up with the news. And man, it's, within hours, things can get popped up and then become irrelevant. So it's, yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah. So let's get into a couple of announcements first and just see what's going on with us. And then we'll get into our news stories for the day. Now for me, Portal to Ascension, we're moving forward, creating events still, of course, I'm not going to stop doing that. And our big event is going to happen October 1st to the 5th of this year. We're going to do an online Q&A event. So I'm putting a lot of energy into that now. And there was actually something that just happened. Did you hear about it, Justin, the harmonic convergence?
I've heard that before, but no, it's a conference or
there was one in 87, right? And this guy, Mark Sims, who I'm going to be on his show with him this Saturday. He's going to be part of our event. He got a download from some ET that he's been connected with for ages. This guy is one of the pioneers of nanotechnology, like he's like literally from Silicon Valley, right? But awakened and talks to ETs. And he did it for the last 10 days ending yesterday. They did a 24-hour day, 10 days in a row live stream. Oh yeah, we spoke about it because we were going to stream it, but we didn't.
Yes,
remember?
Right.
So They went for 10 days straight, 24 hours a day, nonstop awareness, some of the greatest minds in the field. And the whole goal was to, like, the marketing around it, the video and everything, was to set the precedence for open contact by this weekend so that there would be light ships that appear everywhere.
Wow.
Mass meditation in the morning, mass meditation at night, 90 to 100,000 views per video every day.
That's incredible. I mean, gee, did anything ended up happening? Did anybody catch anything? Or
well, you mean in regards to like light ships and spaceships? Yeah. So I'm sure that because they were in Ojai, so I'm sure they were looking every day. I was busy doing my own thing, so I haven't heard any reports. But the whole thing was that they were going to do these 10 days, and then there was going to be something like the download he got was that there was going to be a sighting this weekend.
Wow. No
so
kidding. Many
people are doing their own CE5 type meditations for that. So we're doing something as well, 5 days in a row. It's going to be around 9 to 10 hours a day, 50 speakers, 10 MCs. I'm calling in radio hosts and people that are doing like epic things from all over the world. And it's going to be a truly collaborative event. That's going to be October 1st to the 5th. And besides that, all of our online events have gone. I mean, all our live events, including the James Redfield event that we have coming up in a couple weeks, everything is going online. And our new website is going to be launched next week. And then our app, the Android app and the iPhone app, is going to be launched the week after. So that's something really exciting I'm looking forward to.
Nice. And I think you were telling me last time that you can actually start to broadcast to your TV with the new app. Is that right?
So yeah, I just took I sat down and wrote down every feature from every app that I have seen doing this stuff and the best things out of it. And one thing that I really appreciate, especially on YouTube, is just you click cast to your TV and then you can just see it there within seconds, right? So we're going to have that in our app too, and people are going to be able to cast their replays to the TV. There's going to be archive of documentaries, and right now I'm actually reaching out to documentarians that have created documentaries already and asking them to license their footage and put it on our website, so that, as you know, we're a one-stop shop for consciousness, especially with presentations. But now I want to curate and add more content in there and spend this time really to establish ourselves as a actual conscious streaming platform that's to be reckoned with.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's, y'all, if you haven't checked out portaltoascension.org, I mean, there's just so much content on there. And now that you can broadcast it live, I mean, or to the TV, that's a game changer. I know a lot of people, they really like these things, but sometimes they don't want to sit there with their computer or whatnot, you know. So yeah, that's awesome.
So what's up with you?
A couple things, actually. So first of all, I want to show off my new shirt that I'm wearing here. So this is a design that I had a good friend of mine. He put this together. If y'all can't read it, it says, "Until you wake up, we will fight for you." And it's just absolutely gorgeous. So if y'all are interested in this, I got shirts, I got coffee mugs, stickers, pillows, I mean, all sorts of stuff. I kind of went crazy with the Teespring listing. And it has all sorts of cool stuff. It's like a really pretty shirt. And it's basically the idea that, you know, there's this positive military alliance, and they're literally working to take down the deep state, which in my opinion, I think that's there's so much evidence to back that up. So that's really exciting. Got a bunch of new merch on the site. The Brand Body for Awareness project, we're going to start launching a new site probably in a couple months if I can get it to happen. So that should be really cool. And stillnessinthestorm.com, that's my main project. They have, I've actually updated that significantly. So I've taken, there used to be 2 sidebars on Stillness in the Storm. As you know, I had to, you know, because of revenue, I had to generate money to actually make everything happen. It actually costs a lot of money to maintain a website these days, as you know, Neil. But what I've done is I've switched to a new ad platform. It limits the amount of ads that people see, and I've actually stripped away an entire section of ads. So now there's actually more places to see and just read content without as many ads all over the website.
Oh, nice.
So really good. People are really happy about that. That just launched yesterday. So go ahead and check that out, everybody, at stillnessinthestorm.com. And yeah, and then the last thing I just wanted to mention is I'm about halfway through season 2 of Into the Storm on edgeofwonder.tv. We're talking about a lot of cool stuff. I'm going over a lot of the deep symbolism of the Luciferian ideology, how Marxism ties into it, some really deep spiritual concepts, and an episode I'm working on right now. Man, y'all are going to love this. I'm basically going to break down like some of these deep archetypal stories that have been woven into Hollywood media all over the place. If you don't know, like a lot of these Hollywood types, they retell ancient myths and stories within movies. So if you know how to decode them properly, you can just see this stuff like plain as day. So I've taken this Lucifer rebellion concept that was depicted in the Urantia book and also in the Bible and various other places, and I'm breaking it down in movies that I'm going to showcase in the next series of episodes here. So it should be really cool. Nice, man. I'm excited for that. Yeah. All right, so should we get into some news stories? Let's do it. All right, you want to start us off? Sure. All right, so big thing that's been happening past few weeks. I mean, for people who've been following the coronavirus thing ever since it started, COVID-19, you've probably known, if you've been researching this stuff yourself, that the official story and what we're hearing is not necessarily what the data actually bears out. And I got an opportunity to speak to an anesthesiologist when I was in Arizona and a naturopath, really smart folks. I got to actually kind of hang out and party with them for a little bit. Nothing crazy, you know, but just like hang out and talk. And we had some really amazing conversations. And I was asking them, like, okay, well, you're a medical professional, you're trained. What do you think about the infection rate? What do you think about the death rate? What do you think about the way that the testing is done with antibodies? Mm-hmm. And they all agreed and said that first of all, the antibody test is not a perfect one. For those of you who don't know, their coronavirus is itself a class of viruses. So your flu, your common cold, SARS, H1N1, these are all coronaviruses. And so when you do a coronavirus test, any antibody that's been in your body could potentially trigger a positive for COVID-19, according to what they're saying, but it might not actually be COVID-19. It might be, that you got the flu last year. Mm-hmm. So that was something that really helped confirm for me something I've been reading online. These days there's a lot of information. You don't know if it's real or not. Yeah. I talked directly to doctors and they said that it definitely was suspect.
Case in point to that CDC website. Yeah. There is a chance, CDC website, right, guys? There is a chance a positive result means that you have antibodies from an infection with the virus from the same family of viruses called coronaviruses, such as the one that causes the common cold.
Bingo. There you go. Yeah, exactly. So that was a really good development that I had. And that ties into the main story, which is the CDC might officially downgrade COVID-19 from an epidemic to just a regular old virus because the death rate is so low. So I want to just lay this out for everybody real quick. When you go to the news, especially the mainstream media, you hear that cases are being identified all over the place, the infection rate's going up, and you might be thinking, oh my God, this is horrible. Some officials, like I believe it's Fauci, is saying, we got to keep the economy locked down. We got to keep people quarantined because this infection rate keeps going up. But if that's just part of the picture. First of all, the infection rate itself is not something that's perfect. A lot of people have come out and said, including doctors, that the definition of what can be defined as being infected, literally, they could potential symptoms. They don't even have to do a virus test these days. Potential symptoms of they thinking you have COVID-19, they could label as an infection, Or another thing, you could be dying in hospice. You could die from a car crash, and they could potentially label you as a COVID-19 death just because you have the antibodies in your system.
Yes.
All right. So the infection rate is a whole other thing. But let's just assume, for sake of argument, that the infection rate is totally valid and the death rate is totally valid. Well, something that happened about a month and a half ago is that the death rate, so if you look, imagine, let's see if I can do it with my hands. Initially the death rate's like here, the COVID infection rate's like here, so they're both spiking up at once. But then something remarkable happened. The infection rate started to keep going, and the death rate started to decline. And you get this divergence in the curves. And what does that mean? Well, if you look at other pandemics throughout history, when that happens, it usually indicates that we're developing herd immunity. Mm-hmm. So the death rate is plummeting. And what that, as I just suggested, it means that the lethality of this pandemic is nowhere near as crazy as people think. As a matter of fact, statistically, you're more likely to die from the flu, which people have been saying for a while now, than you are from COVID-19. So that's a really good piece of news, I think.
Yeah. Which is why the news is literally telling you every single day how many more cases, but no one's saying anything about how many more deaths. In the beginning, it was this many cases, this many deaths. Everything has been really, from a world that's so technologically and scientifically advanced, we've really backward on the way we've handled most of this stuff, even the reporting, right? CDC and WHO should be ready for this. They literally named all of the things that came out of this, the exact same things that were originated in movies. Like if you watch Contagion, for example,
yes,
the lingo from Contagion is exactly the same. How many feet apart, social distancing. It's not like this happened and all of a sudden they, came up with what they need to call this. It was all there. It was all like, they know how to deal with this stuff. So they started by telling people how many people were dying. And now they're just talking about how many cases, and they're not doing it proportionately either. The US is bigger and has more citizens and population than a lot of other countries. And so for people to keep saying like the US has the most cases when they're not using like mathematics in order to figure out the fractions and the proportions of that, right? Like, you know what I'm saying, right? Like using the raw data to actually map out what places are worse. Because some counties, right? Like for example, Orange County, 3.19 million, LA County, 3.9 million. They have more people in just that county than a whole entire country that has like less cases or more cases.
Right.
And then if you take out maybe like, if you take out two cities out of this huge country with all these cities, LA and New York, you have like the lowest cases in the world. So these states are really like they're operating as their own countries, really. It's no different than Europe being a country full of all these states that are actually countries, and the US. So there's a invested interest in creating this fear making us keep thinking that, oh my God, we're so terrible. The administration can't even control this or handle what's going on right now because look how many cases we have. But why aren't people taking a step back to think about, well, if you put, the US over the entire Europe, we almost encompass every single country.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, I mean, you're making really good points in it. And actually, this is something I'm hoping our guest today, John DeSouza, will give us some light, shed some light in, because correct me if I'm wrong, he's going to get a chance to talk to us about how we discuss information and assess information and investigate things.
Exactly.
So one of the things that I wanted to share on that is that, when we're trying to look at and figure out from a discernment perspective what something is, we need to get the whole picture. And what the media does, the Mockingbird media, is they give you a tiny little slice, and then they say, look at how horrible this is. There's a really great image that shows this, it's like a Vietnam photo, this guy, and it looks like he's having this gun pointed to his head, and he has this like grimace on his face, and it's like this little piece of picture. But if you widen the picture to see what they cut off, it's actually this dude who's getting water from his compatriot, his fellow soldier, and there just so happens to be a gun next to his head because it's on his belt and it's not even being pointed at him. So this is what they do. They take a circumscribed view and they cut out all the stuff they don't want you to see, and then with that, they give you this false news.
Yeah.
Thing.
So they distort the truth, and they can, when somebody says you lied to us, it's not technically a lie because it just distorted the truth.
Bingo. Exactly.
And this videos, nonstop videos of mainstream media clips put together on how they're doing things like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's just ridiculous at this point. It's completely manipulated, contrived, and maliciously too. It's not like they made an accident. They literally have an agenda, and then they do everything and anything and violate our trust and all that just to portray whatever they want to push out there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, case in point, MSNBC was using, I believe, footage from Zombieland, or whatever that movie was with Brad Pitt.
World War Z. I just watched it 2 days ago.
Yeah. They were using footage from World War Z to show like the craziness of the lockdown and the riots, but it was actually World War Z, not really, New York City. So
yeah.
One last thing I wanted to mention about this, for those of you who've been following Werewolf Radio for a while, one of the people we interviewed, Adam Riva, brilliant guy. He's got tons of information. His website, Dauntless Dialogue, he's got this whole section called Dauntless Dialogue Academy. Check it out. And I actually was just working with him on a project called Mockingbird, where we're going to break down all of how this fake news works, what the agenda is, how it works, what the psychology is behind it. It's going to be really awesome. So give an opportunity to check that out if you have some time when that's ready.
Man. That's going to be what, a video, or what are you doing?
It's like he's doing this like kind of lecture documentary thing. I don't want to get ahead of what he's doing, but what I can share is that it's going to have some really awesome people on it. Myself, Adam, of course, is going to be there. Simon Essler, David Whitehead, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Forgive me, but he's basically going to be breaking down Mockingbird, which is this CIA operation that was literally infecting or infiltrating media organizations, feeding them stories, basically carefully manufacturing what we perceive to be real and value through mass media. So it's going to be a mind-blowing expose.
Yeah, and to add to Project Mockingbird, just like many of the valid, most important black budget programs, all of a sudden it stops getting funded, and they say that it closes down, but it never really closes down. It just goes black budget, and they continue doing it, but do it off the books because they've discovered something or they figure something out, like MK Ultra, like this goes on, Stargate, so many different things that they do this to. So that actually continued. And an example would be Project Bluebeam. I mean, not Blue Book, the UFO program definitely continued and just changed multiple times. So I'm glad you're doing that, brother. I would like to see that when it's up.
Yeah, it's going to be great. He's got a lot of good stuff on there. So
okay, so further on coronavirus news, an Italian scientist, an expert that he was part of the coronavirus testing and seeing what kind of results it has on different surfaces and all that. His name is Matteo Bassetti. He has now said that coronavirus is weakening and could die on its own without a vaccine.
Wow.
And this, just a couple of bullets from this article. He said patients who could have previously succumbed to COVID-19 were recovering without breathing difficulties. And this is the country that had the most of the cases for a while. And then Bassetti said the virus was like a tiger in March and April, but has downgraded to a wild cat in recent weeks. which goes to the point that less and less people are dying. One of the biggest trips, Justin, that I've come across is that, okay, so Orange County, LA County, we're just like neighbors, right? LA County, 3.9 million people. Orange County, 3.19 million people. Not too far. They're almost exactly the same, right? LA County, it's over 4,000 deaths. It might have been like 6,000 right now. Orange County, 400.
Wow.
We're right next to them, you know? And then you look a little deeper and they say, oh, the types of communities being impacted are people of color, right? And you try to find out what that means. And you see that it's people who have less access to healthcare are actually the ones that are being affected more negatively. Orange County, in a liberal state, is pretty much a pretty conservative place. You know what I mean?
Right.
And a lot of well-to-do people, a lot of business professionals, a lot of celebrities, and basketball players and athletes who work in LA live in Orange County just because of the class is like the level of living is much higher, right?
Sure.
So it's just interesting to me. What a huge difference. That's like 4,000 or 5,000 people difference. Why don't these counties talk to other counties and see what they're doing right and implement it in there? And if they find any discrepancies of why, why is it spreading next door or not spreading over here? Why aren't we told the reasons why?
Great question. I mean, one of the things I've noticed, and perhaps you've noticed this too, is that if you ask medical professionals, they all kind of share the same basic perspective, which is that, there's really not a whole lot to worry about. It mainly affects the elderly or the immunocompromised. So children, you don't have to worry about. They're not even carriers. Most adults over below the age of 40, you don't have to worry about. And so, and there are treatment methods that work: hydroxychloroquine, zinc, various other things. You got the issue of the virus dying. Basically, if you're in a hot state where it's humid, that virus is going to die within like 30 seconds, a minute, I've heard in some of the statistics I've seen. So my point here is that if you're, one of the doctors really put this beautifully, is like, if you look at the granular data, if you actually look at the specific data, if you kind of open the book and look beyond just the cover, to use an analogy, you start to see that what we're hearing from the mainstream, which is just the top down, general perspective, is not what's actually happening. There's a whole lot of misinformation going on. And so that speaks perfectly to what you're saying right here in this article.
Exactly. All right, moving on. Next article. Do you have some more, or should I go into the next one?
Go ahead. You go one. I'll grab another one here.
See. A few of these articles are definitely along the lines of what you want to talk about, so I'll save that for then. But here we go. So Delhi-based institute claims to cure COVID-19 through cosmic sound therapy, the Indian Express. And I'll just read a little bit from this. This is a legitimate article. They've actually had good results. So New Delhi, the Human Energy Research Center, an organization based on public-private engagement model in the national capital, has claimed to have found a way to cure COVID-19 by using an extraordinary sound therapy electrofrequency vibration. The therapy, developed by Dr. Ramesh Vaish and a few other people that I cannot pronounce, is claimed to be based on the principle derived from the ancient Vedic philosophy that the entire universe is eternally in a state of subtle vibrations called cosmic sound. Combining this knowledge with the principles of quantum theory applicable to a wave, the experts developed 3 sound waves. Vibrational frequencies of coronavirus and 2 enzymes were decoded, and since each of them have different frequencies, the 3 sound waves have been designed to deal with each of them. The sound therapy is completely harmless, drug-free, and does not have any side effects. There are a lot of physics involved in this technique, and it is not a medical process. The sound wave will attack the virus and create resonance. The virus, which has a protein cell layer, starts vibrating, and therefore chemical bond breaks down. The virus cannot sustain beyond a certain energy level. Boom.
Wow. You got to send that to me, man. That just blows my mind. Because
you know how I'm all into sound and vibration, right? So when I saw that, I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah, that is amazing. I mean, it makes total sense. The Royal Rife machine has the same principle. It just uses electromagnetic frequencies to do the same thing. Because, I went to school for physics, so I just speak to the science a little bit. Like at a certain level, sound and electromagnetic interactions actually kind of fuse. So depending on what kind of sound frequencies you're using, you could basically produce the same basic effect. And that is just amazing that they did that. Wow, I'm just blown away.
Yeah, and that it's coming across the mainstream. It's been an alternative for so long. And just that they're talking about that. It's one thing to talk about sound and frequency and quantum physics, which is almost acceptable to people now. But to bring in that they got this awareness from the ancient Vedic knowledge and brought out the frequencies from there, that goes deep.
Amazing.
That ties it all in.
I mean, it's the same principle as an opera singer shattering a glass with their voice. You know, you find the resonant frequency of something. You can either use a certain volume of that frequency to strengthen it and heal it, which is what cymatics does for healing your organs in your body. Or if you want to destroy it, you increase the volume, and then it literally destroys like a glass.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I do feel a lot of great advancements are going to come out of this period of time. You know, just like I've said before, that the greatest accomplishments in human history has happened through the worst tragedy. You know, we have to use that ingenuity and creativity to get out of it. So I'm hoping, you know, the online world like is going to be much more solid than it was before, because we've invested so much time and energy into it. But also innovative studies such as this are coming out to the surface too. So it's truly exciting.
It is, definitely. Yeah, it makes me wonder if that's part of some disclosure campaign that's happening.
What else you got?
All right, so I got one. I'll touch on this briefly because I know we got a limited time here. But okay, so some of you might have heard this really scary thing about the bubonic plague recently emerging on the scene. You know, well, it's not necessarily all that much to worry about. I actually posted an article on my site today. It's called "No, You Don't Need to Worry About Bubonic Plague." So what's happened is on the 6th of July, China confirms that there was a case of bubonic plague. Recently today, CBS News posted that there was a squirrel found that tested positive in Colorado for bubonic plague. And you might be wondering, I mean, geez, like we don't have enough being thrown at us right now with COVID-19 and riots and the economy. Now we got the bubonic plague. Well, don't worry, because I'm going to break it down for you. There was actually an article that was published on NBC News that stated that there are approximately 2,000 cases of bubonic plague identified in the world every year, and there's only a handful in the United States. Now, this is according to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. Now, the reason why bubonic plague was so deadly is because of several factors. There wasn't adequate treatment, and there was innate environmental factors. So this is very similar to how polio and some of these other diseases faded away once, you know, sanitary conditions improved, because, you know, access to clean water improved. There was less rats and things running around, which are carriers of bubonic plague, and then the fleas that would jump from the rats to people. So that was a big factor for why bubonic plague was a big issue back in the 14th century, where it had the biggest impact. That's when the Black Death, this horrible thing we hear about called the Black Death, where like 500,000 or 50% of the population of Eurasia got wiped out allegedly. So the good news is that with modern treatments like antibiotics, if you are identified as having the bubonic plague within about 24 to 48 hours, then they can easily take care of it, no problem. I mean, you have to deal with the antibiotics, but that's something easy to deal with. So again, if you hear these stories, don't worry. In my opinion, the reason they're even giving this any immediate attention at all, I mean, think about it. If there are 2,000 cases of people literally getting infected every year, and all of a sudden they're taking this little story about a squirrel being found that has it, which they apparently carried anyway, why are they doing that? Well, to go along with the theme of today's show, it's fake news, it's fear mongering, it's reality management. There's an agenda. They want to keep everybody in fear so that nobody wants to leave their house, so that they can keep everybody in a psychologically depressed condition to manipulate your sense of values, consent, etc. So yeah, that's a good start right there. Yep.
So let's get into the topics of the hour. You know, the what you all signed up for or came here for, which isn't, you know, which is everything really. But let's get into the topic of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell now, because that seems to be the, you know, what's relevant now, and there's a lot that's happened in the last week. I've been posting articles every single day on my page, just so that I could check back on it for today and kind of see the timeline of what's happening. And I know you have some things to share, so do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I'll kind of give an overview of what happened, and you can jump in at any time.
Yeah.
So Ghislaine Maxwell, Ghislaine, there's different ways to pronounce it. Ghislaine. We'll go with Ghislaine. She was arrested on July 2nd in her New Hampshire hideaway. So she actually recently bought $1 million estate, I believe, with I think 100 acres. Yeah, in cash. Yeah, she just had the cash, and she was been hiding out there for like a year, I think. Now, she was arrested there. She was brought up on charges of allegedly recruiting and grooming underage girls in the 1990s to be sexually abused by Epstein and a whole bunch of other people. It's that "and" part that is really piquing a lot of interest, not only in the media, not only in law enforcement, but in, you know, awakening and truth movement circles. And now here's something really interesting. A lot of people are wondering, this woman who's been in this blackmail game for decades, who knows how the law works, who knows how the system works, who knows how to hide from the law, why in God's name did she go to New Hampshire of all places to hide away? Right?
Leave the country.
Exactly. There's several non-extradition countries she could hidden out in. She could have done a Julian Assange. She could have gone to Ecuador. She could have gone to Morocco, and she could have potentially been in a legal limbo for years potentially, and there wouldn't have been any problem. So why is it that she stayed in the United States? Well, this is an interesting theory I heard, and I think it has a lot of weight to it.
Okay.
What if she wasn't actually hiding out at all? What if she was released and she actually made a deal with investigators a long time ago to go out into the public and create this illusion that she was hiding from authorities, in which case, after Epstein got killed, the deep state and all the people who've been in this blackmail trap for a really long time, because remember, the blackmail trap is how the deep state controls the people that they get into the network. What if they released her so that all these people who are trying to tie up loose ends can start to contact her? Now that she's under surveillance, all these people can then be identified, and then that would lead to probable cause for an investigation for them to be brought into this case as time goes on. I think that's a really interesting point. What do you?
That would be amazing if that is the case. When this happened, I was in bed. I just woke up. I put my phone on, so I wasn't even awake yet. And I just waited for her to wake up so I could tell her.
Right.
I'm like, first thing, like in the morning, as soon as she opened her eyes, I told her, "What's up?"
Right.
And I was like, dude, I can't freaking believe it. I thought they were never going to find her. And I was really disappointed that Epstein killed himself.
Right.
Killed himself. So
right.
I wanted some sort of justice and really this to be exposed because this goes so deep. All we're hearing is from even credible sources nonstop over and over that high-level politicians, rulers of countries are involved, and this isn't conspiracy theory at this point. It's been said so many times, and we already know, like, just the basic facts of who we do know. Prince Andrew, of course, Bill Clinton, I think it was something like 26 times, and many other celebrities, including Gwen Stefani, like on multiple times onto his plane and to his island. So I wanted to, let's expose this because I don't even really like the fact that that the entertainment industry is controlled by these people, and I love entertainment, and I really want to sift out the individuals that are using this entertainment to portray a specific agenda and are doing all these like criminal activities behind closed doors. So I was extremely excited when she got caught, and then when I heard that she was working with authorities, and one of her close friends said, somebody that was actually with her for a while said that she is going to be naming names and she actually has secret recordings of many celebrities and politicians. That's very interesting to me. You got to, take that with a grain of salt because the authorities didn't say that. She didn't say that. Somebody that knows her said it and it went viral because sensational news is the way the media likes to portray everything. Hopefully she does do that. I would think somebody would, in her role, what she's been doing, would like take something like this to the grave, but people are saying no, she just wants to protect herself. On some level, I think like they're not going to let her come out with anything, and maybe she's just not going to release it. And on some level, it's going to be stopped midway, or she won't say anything and be in jail full time. But I do hope that we start hearing some things very soon. She did plead not guilty, I think yesterday or the day before. And the reason for that isn't because she's saying that she's not guilty, even though she might actually think that for herself. But if she pleaded guilty, she wouldn't be able to do a plea bargain, is what I heard. And having a plea bargain will allow her to maybe get a reduced sentence if she was to give away some names. And the court date, though, unfortunately, is not for another year from now, July of next year. Exactly. So I don't know if they're pushing it off so that it gets out of the people's consciousness. When Epstein, died, and then after that things started fading out, I was like, man, this sucks. The news story is really fading out. We need to keep the momentum going. So I'm excited that it's resurrected it, and I'm hoping that we can see this all the way through and expose it, because it seems to me that this is like the prime trafficking industry and person on the entire planet, connected to the highest levels of people.
Definitely. Yeah, I think this Ghislaine Maxwell and the whole Epstein Island thing is one of probably many blackmail operations, because, reaching back in history, the Vatican's been doing the whole blackmail thing for a long time. As a matter of fact, that's part of why the whole idea of confession came about, is because they wanted to get at the dirt on people so that they could use it against them. So, but yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of, this might be the biggest blackmail enterprise. And other thing that's really interesting is that there's a lot of seemingly connected ripple effects. So from a game theory perspective, if there really is this kind of silent war between the white hats and the black hats happening, the alliance and the deep state, then they make a move, and then if the white hats really are embedded in the NSA, which is a strong case to be made for that, then these guys have access to some of the most incredible surveillance ever. Like your cell phone is basically a microphone and a video camera, and they're everywhere, and it's embedded in this technology. So they have access to all of this. And what has been happening? Well, you got the defund the police movement. Isn't that interesting that law enforcement's being attacked? You got the Michael Flynn case, where Michael Flynn was recently exonerated, and now all these public officials, Adam Schiff, Pelosi, all these people that are basically had their crimes outed about using the law to fraudulently pursue the president and push an impeachment. Now they're coming under heat, and they're trying to discredit the FBI and discredit these organizations. Why? Because if anything comes out, then they'll be like, well, yeah, guys, all this is corrupt. Don't you see? We're the good guys. You know what I mean? Another interesting thing, Chrissy Teigen recently deleted 60,000 of her tweets, and she blocked over 1 million of the people that were following her on Twitter. And she's going crazy. I mean, I was looking at some of her tweets yesterday, and I'm like, what is this woman doing? Like, she's going nuts.
Weird, man.
Yeah. So I think what we're seeing, if, unfortunately, I don't have like a computer in my head, but if I was to see like watching all of these actors and these politicians and these things happening, and I saw like a big picture canvas, I think that this drop that happened, this Epstein suicide and then Ghislaine Maxwell getting arrested, is likely creating all these ripples. And if you know how to gather the data properly, and maybe John DeSouza has something to say about this, you can really get a picture of what might be going on.
Right. I mean, the Chrissy Teigen tweets, like, I had no idea, and I just saw them today for the first time, and they're just weird. Like, some may say they're smoking guns in what she is saying, and some of them are very graphic but using other terminology, metaphors. But if you like read a little bit into it, you can tell that like what the heck is going on with this person. It's interesting because she's married to John Legend, right? And John Legend is like the anti-human trafficking dude that came out against R. Kelly and is like trying to put all this money into exposing it. And that leads me to the awareness that a lot of people who are doing things that are terrible, they're actually invested in businesses that are supposedly against that.
Bingo.
For example, the Vatican.
Yep.
Exactly. Religion, God, like, be one with God and know that he's with you. But behind closed doors, all types of crazy stuff is going on.
Yeah. Controlled opposition. I mean, if you think about it, if you know that you've got criminal activities going out there, what better way to deal with it than you yourself creating an organization that's going to prosecute that, because now you get to control it from within inside.
Yeah, it's like starting wars and then also being the owner of the Red Cross.
Exactly.
So a couple more things about this on my end is Epstein. I don't know if you saw this article, but Epstein, other recruiters, former women accused of supplying young girls for him to abuse face probe, as it's revealed that Maxwell moved house 36 times in a year. So 4 other women now are being basically reported by victims saying that they also were helping groom young women, and one of them was originally a victim at age 15, and then a few years later she, like a lot of times victims actually they actually like it or become a part of it, you know what I mean? So that's what seems to happen in her case. At age 15 she was doing it for a while, and then she finally started actually grooming people for him, and now it looks like they're going to face charges too. And these women, the name actually had come up before when Epstein was originally tried and, classified as a sex offender when this first happened. I forget the year, but they were given immunity, and so was Ghislaine Maxwell. So what Ghislaine has been saying, and these ladies, is you can't do this to me because we've been granted immunity. And then what they're getting in response is you were granted immunity up until the date that's all happened, and the trial was. Everything after the trial are new crimes.
Of course, yeah.
So it's like almost like they were operating, think they had this immunity to continue doing what they were doing.
Yeah. Wow. Great point.
And it is a shame, like, because I can see the psychological warfare that like a 15-year-old girl could go through being brought into this and then like becoming a part of the problem, but she was just a victim all along, and now she's going to be facing charges as well. And, grooming women.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, that we got to be careful, I would say, about how we deal with this and interpret it, because if you're thinking, black and white, like, oh, look, this person, like Rachel Chandler is a really good example. She was, I think, brought in when she was like 15, 16, something like that. And then she later became allegedly like one of these, pedo pimps, basically,
Mm-hmm.
that was running around rounding up girls. And, they've got MK Ultra, they've got these mind control programs. That we could have a whole show on the psychological case for how an abused person is in an abusive situation long enough, they get Stockholm syndrome.
Yes.
And then in order just to cope with the situation, they literally have to accept and deal with it enough, or they literally break down and start to go crazy.
Yeah.
So, these people that are doing this, these are like masters of psychology. They know our consciousness, they know how we work, and they know how to create predators. So I would argue we have to take let's not get out our pitchforks and our nooses and try to start go hang people perspective. We got to look at this as like, basically everybody's a victim in some way, shape, or form. And if we really want to cure the problem and not just get rid of the bad guys, then we got to we have to get understanding about the deeper causes.
Exactly. And there could still be consequences for your actions, but the way you get triggered about it, is basically how we're going to basically treat the other person. So if we understand where it came from, we can offer some sort of, mental assistance, or give the right type of penalty according to that. It's like, but many people have traumas or triggers based on this, especially if you've been molested and, and then you see that happen to others. A lot of people that are, anti-human trafficking and really invested the time into it, maybe I've actually experienced that before. So for me, it's really important to see that everybody's truly a victim. Many of these people have actually been molested for a long time in their own life. So what do we really do in order to fix this systemic problem all around, rather than just keep putting band-aids on top of it? Right? What do we change within society? How do we teach people? What kind of entertainment do we portray? What's on our TV? What the media says? All of these things are really what we need to focus on, so that we can live in an intentional society where we weed this kind of thing out, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, I couldn't agree more.
So I wanted to also say about the Deutsche Bank thing. The Deutsche Bank actually, I forget the numbers right now. I already got rid of the article here, but the premise is that they allowed transfers from Epstein's bank account to all types of women, most of them being from Eastern Europe. And then if you look a little bit deeper, you find that a couple of his victims are from Slovakia that actually filed complaints against him here, and he actually paid for them to come over here. And he paid for many, like not just a few, not just a handful, but many women's tuition, and would wire money all over the world. And this was after Deutsche Bank already had a memo, and all the board directors had sat down, and they said that this is a convicted, pedophile, that he has engaged in this kind of behavior. And then they wanted to sit down and decide what to do with him. And they decided to completely ignore it, to let him open the bank account, and then give him no oversight for making any transactions, especially when he was making all these transactions to women's accounts. And it really, truly was like a money thing, that they weren't even focusing or even cared about what he's done or what he seemed to be doing, completely overlooked it. So the Deutsche Bank got fined $150 million, which is virtually nothing, because Citibank even owns part of Deutsche Bank, and they're huge,
doing
right?
business. Yeah.
So it's just interesting to note that this has been happening for a while. Banks and a lot of elite have actually known about it, and it just further proves that the rabbit hole goes very deep when it comes to this, and the amount of people involved and that are at fault for allowing this to continue, we can't even really fathom at this point.
Yeah, I think if we actually get a full disclosure type of moment just on this issue alone, where people are going to be blown away by the number of people involved in this. So
it could change society, just like the COVID is, right? Like it could literally change if like people that you looked up to, right? Politicians, kings and princes, celebrities, right? Like the highest level of celebrities, it would completely change the game.
Oh yeah. Unquestionably. Cool. So I guess it's a good time to bring in our guest on. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. I did put UFOs in the title for this thing, so I'm going to give a 30-second UFO update really quick.
Let's do it. Yeah, go ahead.
Pentagon has a lot more classified UFO videos, says ex-head of secret government programs. So the ATIP head has now come out just a few days ago and said, the few documents that got released about the Nimitz, he's saying, hey, that's not just it. We have a lot more classified UFO videos. So that's your update in drip disclosure today. And I want to also say that the MUFON director, Jan Harjan,
yeah, that's right.
He got arrested on July 3rd. The MUFON director, I'm sure everybody knows MUFON, the director of the World MUFON organization. July 3rd, he got arrested for soliciting sex with a minor that was 13 years old. That was actually a detective that was undercover. And the article and the Huntington Beach Police Department posted today, earlier this morning, confirming this is the case. I've seen some people say that this could be a scam. Most people are not saying that. But the reason why I think, and we spoke about this earlier today, why it's not a scam, is because it would be different if they targeted someone else in the conscious community. But MUFON is directly connected to Bigelow Aerospace. Bigelow actually funds MUFON quite a bit, and has actually funded MUFON to be able to have a task force, a UFO task force, to appear on site within 24 hours of any UFO sighting. Right, that's how organized they are, and the government funds them, and the CIA and FBI takes documents from them, and then also, X-Files, like that is definitely a part of, the person that we're bringing on next, John DeSouza, is known as the X-Men and dealt with some X-Files. So the X-Files talk about MUFON all the time, and this isn't just because there's some fringe alternative spiritual conscious disclosure people, it's because they're part of the mainstream. So in order for them to choose him, in order to discredit him, this actually doesn't work for the corporations, for the politicians, because this actually are people that are being funded by them. So I doubt that they would actually use him and target him in order to expose this person illegitimately.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Well, it just goes to show you, I mean, there's one thing we didn't get a chance to talk about, but these people, the people who've been running the planet, they know how to manufacture all sorts of things, and sexual depravity, to put it as a blanket term like that, is something they definitely know how to do. So we, like I said, we got to be careful about blaming people or trying to just unilaterally try to get rid of all the pedophiles, because we got to deal with the core problem. So
yeah, exactly. The question really is, do we want this not to happen anymore, or to get to a point where we lessen it? Or do we actually focus on what actually is stemming and causing this, right? Because there are experiences and traumas that these individuals have gone through, or mental issues that have allowed them to get to this point that we don't address, right?
Bingo. Yep.
So that's what's going to happen. It's very unfortunate, and it's kind of a shock, but at the same time, very coincidental that all of these things are happening back to back. And the thing with Jan from MUFON is happening right in the middle of all of this stuff. Yes. And it really is a coordinated effort for at least the last 2 to 4 years to take down human trafficking. Pretty much it.
Oh yeah. Yep.
All right. So are you ready for a guest?
Let's do it.
All right, everybody. We're extremely excited today to bring on a friend to both of us, and his name is John DeSouza. And if you have not heard about John before, he was an FBI special agent working counterterrorism and paranormal cases for over 25 years. He was also an attorney and maintained a top secret security clearance during his time in the U.S. government. He collected true life X-Files. He shares many of these true life X-File cases in his best-selling books, The Para Investigators and Extra Dimensionals and The Clear Hearers. He's been on Portal to Ascension a few times. We just did an event with him, Laura Eisenhower, and Michael Sala 2 weekends ago called Ascension, Exopolitics, and Disclosure. And we have another one coming up with John on August 1st called the Truth Investigators Workshop. So today's topic really is discernment and sorting through all the chaos and all the information. So it's a perfect time to bring on John, because he's been in this field seeking truth and using discernment for quite some time. Hey, brother.
Hey, Neil. How are you doing, man? Hey,
Doing
Justin.
good.
Great to be on here with you, finally. I tell you, I've always admired the profundity of your depth of knowledge and understanding on historical, ancient cultures, and even like ancient law. I mean, you have such a dearth of knowledge on so many areas that it's just great to be on here with you finally. And I pay all homage to the great and mighty beard, because it is magnificent, and it is obviously the source of your great power.
It is.
Clearly, yes, it is. If you rub it the right way, a genie will pop out, grant you three wishes.
I believe it. Awesome.
It's like a wormhole to other dimensions.
That's right, yeah.
Great to be on here with you guys.
Good to have you,
for
really
being
good.
here, brother. So Did you catch? I think you caught some of the show on the topics that we were discussing today, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, great stuff, man.
So what's your take on this? We spoke, you talk about it quite often, the mass arrests, exposing the human sex trafficking, and a lot of things have been happening. But every time we speak, you actually have something to add to it that I really didn't even think about. So just tell me, what is your perspective on what's going on right now?
I'll tell you, I think we're getting close on the mass arrests at the highest levels, because we've been seeing under this administration the low levels of all these organizations being scooped up, not just in the United States, but in other countries all over the world. We've had all these pedo networks being taken down and worked, and now we see the middle levels of these organizations also being taken down, and as you know, Jan Harzen was just scooped up in the middle of these operations going on all over the country, and it's just it shows the momentum and the power that's behind this movement to scoop up all these levels. And now we see the highest level with Ghislaine being taken in, and several other characters that are given less fanfare around the world. And it's just building to a huge climax that we see rushing forward. And one thing I wanted to say about the Ghislaine Maxwell scooping up, if we put it that way, is that it's really, everyone notices how strange it is that she came back to this big estate in the United States, basically just to get arrested, to get scooped up. And why would she do that? And one thing that I saw, and I'm just saying, according to the evidence that I've seen occur since Epstein was taken into custody, one thing that I wanted to propose to people, because I look at clues that are sometimes out of the normal. They're way out of the normal for the regular investigator. And one of the tremendous clues that I saw was, I asked myself, who is the only person that Ghislaine Maxwell has completely obeyed all her life? That if she were to get a phone call from that person telling her, hey, I want you to come back to the United States, to this very open area here, and I want you to report back there and come back there right away. Who's the only person that she would take an order like that from, being out of the United States, a very comfortable spot? And I'll say, who is that person? And I'll give you a hint. It's not her parents. It's not anybody. It's not her boss at work. It's not anybody prominent. There's only one person that could give her an order to come back to the United States, this very open area where she could be arrested, and have her obey that order right away. And that person is Jeffrey Epstein. Mm. And I say that because I've always said that operation that went forward at the Metro prison in Manhattan. I've always said that was an operation going forward to actually get Epstein out of that prison and put a different body in there, because that's what it looked like to me. So I wanted people to think about that, and to be able to think differently about common problems, because I truly believe that an alternate explanation as to why she would have come back and gotten arrested is because she did receive an order from the one person whose order she has always obeyed and always will obey, and that person was Jeffrey Epstein, who's very much alive. I at least for now, I believe, and I believe there were, according to evidence, I believe that there were pictures of a person looking right after the fiasco where Epstein supposedly killed himself or was killed. There were pictures that people took of Epstein Island, of an individual coming off of a helicopter on Epstein Island that looked very much like Jeffrey Epstein. And so these are the things that people need to look at to see possibly what the real situation is that's going on, even as we all kind of, take in this information and see what we think about the situations like this.
Yeah, great points. I mean, it's funny you answered one of the questions I had for you, which is, what did you think about, Jeffrey Epstein's suicide? And, I don't know if you got a chance to catch it when we were talking earlier, but, what are your thoughts on the fact that Ghislaine, who is obviously very aware of legal realities, knows how to avoid, prosecution and things like this, what are the odds that she'd decide to hide out in New Hampshire of all places? Don't you think she'd go to a non-extradition country?
Yeah, and I believe she was in an area where she was very safe. I don't know if it was non-extradition, but she was very safe and very secure from ever being arrested. So that's what makes it. So the chances are, unless you had a tremendous superseding condition like the one I just talked about, there's zero chance that she would have come to New Hampshire to risk herself and expose herself to being captured and arrested under ordinary circumstances. So she never would have done that unless there was something so overwhelming, so superseding, so crazy that would come up, like a call from her former, I would say, master. I wouldn't say boss. I would say her former master, Jeffrey Epstein,
right,
called her and told her, get back here right away, something very important for you to do.
Well, the FBI said even that they had eyes on her for quite some time, right? And they knew that she was there and they were just monitoring her. But
FBI says a lot of stuff.
Exactly.
Some of it's true and some of it's
true.
not.
Well, and also up until a day or two before that, they said that they were looking for her. So even if they did know where she was, they basically calling themselves out because they publicly said that we have no idea where she was. But then they say, actually, we did know where she was. We were looking at her the whole time. Right.
Right. Yeah, I meant to do that. That's kind of like I meant to do that defense. When something happens that's out of left field and you don't know how it happened, and you just you have to kind of say, well, I'm in the public eye, so you know what? Yeah, I meant to do that. That was my doing. It was on purpose.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, so much is happening right now in regards to exposing, human trafficking. And then let's get into the Wayfair thing, because I want to have a balanced conversation about this. People are split. Some people are extremely upset that people are saying anything about Wayfair because they don't think there's enough evidence, and they're just calling the people that say something's going on crazy, like lunatic, the worst type of conspiracy theorists. But then if you look at the evidence from a rational, logical point of view, there are a lot of questions that you kind of have to look at. So I think we should all kind of chime in on this. But John, what is your opinion on all this?
There are masses and masses of evidence that Wayfair has, through third parties, been engaging possibly in allowing the trafficking of children through their company sites and through their third party sites as well. Now the only question is how much weight does that evidence have? If I sit here and say I heard an allegation that Wayfair is involved in child trafficking, that allegation can then become evidence, but it doesn't have much weight because it's from a third party. You don't know what the credibility of that party is, and it doesn't have very much weight at all. But when you take so many of these instances that these, I like to call them 4chan investigators. They are the greatest investigators in history, much better than FBI agents. They are amazing. I mean, they're literally amazing. The things that they can do with matching up skew numbers and matching up different little bits of evidence and showing you graphically what matches up and what doesn't. It's amazing. And these people have been examining the Wayfair evidence left and right. And it's pretty solid. It's pretty solid as far as what's been going on. Now, all of that is being covered up now, of course, and changed over by the company, Wayfair. But the only way I really do think, and I think Justin will probably come to the same conclusion, that it's very likely that Ghislaine had something to do with all this information coming out all of a sudden. That's so. In other words, everything's kind of back asswards because we're getting this. The only reason that all these great investigators have come up with all this information is probably because it was put into the cybersphere first by these FBI interrogations of Ghislaine. That's what it seems like, because the timing is just too coincidental.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that too. That I mean, what I was suggesting is that there seems to have been a coordinated effort to, from a kind of a game theory perspective, if we're really dealing with a kind of silent Cold War, you put certain assets out into the public arena and you paint a picture about what those things look like, and then you sit back and you watch what happens because you got surveillance on everybody, you know. And with the Wayfair situation, I mean, there were pillows being listed for $10,000 with names associated to missing women that were missing very recently. We're not talking about women that were missing like 20 years ago, you know, people that were missing very recently. And then, you know, these SKU numbers, if I remember correctly, you could take the SKU number with something else, maybe the name, go
SRC
to Yandex.
Something like that.
Yeah, SRC, yes, thank you. And go to Yandex, which is the Russian search engine, and find these photos. So, I mean, the links are amazing now.
Photos of little children.
Yeah, of little children. So, you know, I'm not an FBI investigator, but I'm a philosopher, and I like to study epistemology, the basis of like evidence. And, you know, when you have a piece of evidence that builds a case across time, then that evidence leads and compels you to propose that there might be a connection. Not that there's definitive proof you can open and shut case, but at least opens the door for an investigation. Would you not agree?
Absolutely. You know, in the FBI, we had a saying whenever we were in obvious situations. And the saying was, you don't need to be a professional investigator to know when someone's peeing on your leg and telling you it's raining. You know, you can just figure those things out. And speaking of investigators, I just want to give some credit. There's an amazing YouTube investigator named Amazing Polly, who actually was the only person that I have seen who actually went into these Wayfair events and how it matched up to child trafficking. And she did it like a year ago. It was like a year ago.
Oh, really? Wow.
And it was, and she's the only person who did this. And of course, because she was the only one, it never really went anywhere until now. And if you go to her channel, you can see she's making new videos showing that she actually pointed all this stuff out about a year ago. It's amazing, really amazing stuff.
So I agree with both of you in regards to this whole Wayfair thing. It's definitely something going on, but I'm also going to be a little bit of a devil's advocate. So I've been watching every video that could come up. As soon as I heard it, I was watching all these people's videos of screen sharing. Everything checked out in the stories of what they shared, the names, the cabinets and the prices. But one thing that didn't check out is people went to the Yandex and started doing their own research by putting in the codes that after the original person, showed it on their TikTok, I think. And first, the one person did a video showing a bunch of images of military officials and started saying it's patriots, right? But that one person put out a video, but no one else that did it, and hundreds of people that did it, actually got patriot images. So that looks like that could have been photoshopped. And then someone else did it, and they got images of Rolex watches, right? So whether it was changed or whether everything was valid and then someone just created that meme in the end on Yandex, right? We don't know. Definitely there's too many things that we can prove that happened, but a couple things we can't prove are the images that were shared by one person and no one else validated it, right? So it looks like there's some sort of laundering going on, whether it's children or money laundering in general. But what I can say that actually raises like a light bulb in my head went off when I heard this whole story was Wayfair acts like a shell company. And the reason is that we got all our furniture from Wayfair because it's cheap, right? We got 3 cabinets, $400 each. Two of them had screws missing. We got our money refunded entirely because they don't accept the refunds, right? We literally have this table I'm on, and this other table that like the one that you can raise your laptop on, all of that stuff, there were issues and scratches on it. So I'd call them and they would just give me it for free. And I have around $2,500 worth of Wayfair furniture for probably $200.
Wow.
Because there was issues with it. So I was like, wait a second, you can't refund it because it goes back to China. So they don't want the thing back, but they don't even ask you questions. They just say, oh, it's got a scratch. Let me give you your money back. So that's how shell companies work. Their money is not involved in the sale of the products that they say that they're doing. Right. And then someone from Wayfair, an ex-employee, does a tweet where they say that they had a platinum for all the high-priced Wayfair products. There was a platinum elite customer service department that all the regular employees weren't allowed to know about or even talk to or communicate. And if anybody was ever on the phone for a high-priced item, they would get rerouted to that department, and nobody knew who worked in that department.
That's right.
Wow. So there's just too many things going on, right?
Too many connections. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There is. But now, all I wanted people to know is that when you're doing an investigation, there are two categories of clues, leads, items of evidence. But we call clues. One is ordinary clues, which can be very powerful. They can be very important. But the other category is something we call dispositive clues. Dispositive clues are clues that each of them is so powerful, so important, that any of those clues could actually decide guilt or innocence just based on those clues because they're so massive. Like if you have a clue where it's the bloody knife, you get a picture of the alleged killer with the bloody knife in his hand right after the murder. That's a dispositive clue because that is so powerful. It's so closely connected to the physical scene of the crime that we can actually say, okay, that is so strong that could actually decide the guilt or innocence by itself. That's it. So that's a dispositive clue. Now, and what I want to say is that a lot of these little clues surrounding the Wayfair incident, the Wayfair situation, let's say, like the SKU numbers that you grab and you plug them into this browser, this Russian browser, and sometimes they come back to child images. Sometimes they come back to other stuff. Those I would say are ordinary clues. Those they can work or not work, but they're ordinary clues. However, I would say that the clues where you have these items of furniture that each have very unique and distinct girls' names on them that match up to young girls who have been snatched and disappeared within the last 90 days. And you have a massive number of those young girls that have disappeared in the last 90 days. And their unique names match up to those furniture items on dozens of those furniture items. Those clues, I would say, can fall into the category of possible dispositive clues because they're so strong. They're so strong and unique that I would say you have to say that we could get possibly some sort of conviction based on that information right there. So that's what I want people to start distinguishing in their minds as investigators.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, as you were laying that out, I had a little thought that appeared to me. I think it'd be good for discussion here. So, you know, in my opinion, we have a positive military acting that has seemed to have taken control of the surveillance state in some capacity. And that positive force seems to be dripping clues into the 4chan investigators that you mentioned, John. And so what if they wanted to gather a metadative case in a dispositive category? So in other words, we've got these images, but this is really kind of surface level stuff. I would argue the real evidence that could be really like smoking gun is all the metadata. You know, who bought these items? What were their IP addresses? What bank accounts were used? You know, who was the person that changed these images? You know, all that is in the back end metadata, the IP addresses, the changes that happen, which if you have I believe it's called a mole, where you plant in a virus into a server, into a database that then starts feeding information to an outside source. What if you planted all that a year ago, potentially? And then what if this information was dripped onto 4chan or wherever it got initially released? It triggered this change in all the surface level stuff, but all the metadata web of what all happened is now stored in a case file somewhere. Don't you think that could be a possibility?
Oh, yes, and I think that may possibly be going on. Just in case there is some involvement in this entire situation from Ghislaine Maxwell, where, you know, she either knows who has all that metadata, or she is, or she has it herself, possibly. Or has access to it. That's definitely the case, because the workers would definitely have tried to erase that stuff. I don't know how easy it is to erase that stuff or to make it disappear. But I'm sure the buyers were assured that it would be disappeared. But that I'm pretty sure that will come back. That will come back at some point, and we will get everything in this situation. You know, the CEO has of Wayfair has resigned and he's gone. So he thinks that's going to make it go away, and you know, now they're finding out every person on the board of directors is involved as well, and that's going to keep going as well. So they don't have an escape route on that.
A couple of more things that, you know, back up this story is the Herald Gazette busted an individual for human child sex trafficking. I think it was last month, and on the image, like, this is on the website, this guy's wearing a Wayfair shirt.
Yes, I saw that.
I don't know. And then this, I don't know if you can see it. This is from the Wayfair's website screenshot, right? And the WTF is what I'm going to read to you right now.
Okay.
At Wayfair, we carry a wide selection of baby and kids, so you can choose from many different options for your home. We carry the best, then it says we carry the best baby and kid products, so you can find one that is just right for you. With a large selection of home goods, you're likely to find something that you'll love. If you're looking for where to buy baby and kids online, then you'll have no trouble finding a great option on Wayfair.
Get out of
This is
town.
on their freaking website.
Wow.
Screenshot.
Holy mackerel.
Hidden in plain sight, or just an oversight and forgot to put the word product afterwards. It's just too many things.
Nah.
It seems like they were hiding it in plain sight, thinking they can get away with it because people would think that this kind of thing would be on the dark web or something. And, you know, or maybe they were working with so many elites that they could just get away with it anyway because they have the media in one pocket, politicians in the other.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Once you have even with regular clues, once you have a big enough mountain of regular clues like that, like the one you just referred to,
something's up.
It starts to become an insurmountable mountain of clues and evidence that just you can't overcome it in any with any fancy lawyer or defense attorney, because it just becomes just too massive. It's just too massive. It's a crazy situation.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I pull from my science background with. So, you know, I'm into philosophy, I'm into epistemology, and epistemology is the study of evidence. Like, how do you know that a claim is true, and what basis are you using to evaluate that claim? And we have this idea of plausible deniability that, you know, to your point, Neil, this website, maybe somebody just made an error. Okay. Well, at certain level of investigation, if you're just looking at that circumscribed point, you might be able to argue that that's true. But if we use a deeper level of analysis from, like, if you're a researcher into physics, if you're looking out into the cosmos and you're trying to build the best case possible, then if you're looking at all of these supposedly plausibly deniable pieces of evidence, well, from a deeper level of epistemological support, from a scientific level, then you're looking at every single data point you can get your hands on. And like you were just saying, Don, you're building, John, you're building a really robust case that unquestionably, I would say, points into a direction, which is that there's something insidious going on here with this. So, yeah.
The way Snopes responded to this, you know, Snopes is annoying me so much, guys. Like, they just come up number one for so many things. And first of all, like it's been validated and verified that the people that are behind this aren't doing the research that they say they are. And a lot of times what happens with Wayfair is like if you search is Wayfair human child sex trafficking, Snopes would be number one, false. But that was within 12 hours of literally the story breaking, and they didn't have any time to investigate. And all they did was ask Wayfair for a statement. Wayfair said no, and they took they told us the truth, and they put it on their website.
Well, the best thing is the wording. Wayfair verified that this story is false. So it's just so funny. Like, I have now verified that the investigation of me by me has resulted in a finding of innocent, that I am innocent. Thank you and good night. It's like every police department ever in the world. You know, it's just like
it drives me crazy. And when people tell me, like, it doesn't happen too often because most people are aware of Snopes, but every now and then someone's like, but Snopes said no. You stop these lies. I'm like, oh my God, I can't even get into this one.
I think that's a really great point, Neil. I didn't think about this, but like if you track the emergence of these stories and then how quickly a quote unquote fact checking website has a very carefully manicured statement that gets thrown into the public eye. I mean, that I think is probably a good case that can be made that we're dealing with a mockingbird situation. Who's actually writing these stories? Who's feeding the stories into these people's hands? You know what I mean? Come on now.
Exactly. But what's funny is people should recognize that what's being done on the fact checker things is just a condensed version. It's like a 2-second version of what's being done in every mainstream news site, because the New York Times and CNN will do the exact same thing that Snopes just did, except they do it long form. They do it long form and with more content. But they basically do the same thing, where Snopes just goes in there in 2 seconds and just says, oh, yeah, we have investigated ourselves, and we now find ourselves innocent.
So this is a good segue into what I want to get into. We both want to get into here, which is discernment, right? And we put it in the title for this. And it's truly like, I actually posted and shared a meme earlier today that Joe from Collective Evolution posted. And it was a meme with this information about this guy from 2013 and all the stuff that happened with him. And the last sentence was, this meme is completely false. Take 5 minutes to research. So what happens a lot of times is there are memes, there's information. We don't know if they're photoshopped or not. People take it as law and this is what it is. And they don't do their research. And which is why we have so much disinformation going around everywhere. And it's hard to sort through it eventually, because it just becomes this huge pile of crap we got to sort through. So it's extremely important to use your discernment and to do research in order to find these out. And simple searches on the internet can expose a lot of truths. And we're going to be doing a webinar together you're going to be doing this webinar on August 1st called the Truth Investigator Workshop. Yes. And when we're going back and forth coming up with the title, trying to wonder what we're going to talk about, when you sent that, I was like, this is awesome, because it's something unique. Like, we talk about ancient history, we talk about UFOs, we talk about conspiracies and what's been discovered, but how often do we talk about the tools and techniques to use discernment to sort through information, so you know exactly what you just said, which one ordinary evidence, what's ordinary evidence, and what are smoking gun pieces of evidence, right? Exactly. So part of this is something called CAIS, and you're going to go over this in a 2-hour presentation on August 1st. People can check it out on portaltoascension.org. But take us into this world of CAIS and how you came about it and what it means.
Well, on August 1st, I'm going to be doing the Truth Investigator Workshop, which I want to let people know this is an 8-hour course. It's an 8-hour course, but it's being reduced. I'm condensing it into a 2-hour course here for this for purposes of the Truth Investigator Workshop. And thank God, Neil Gower will be giving people unlimited replay, because we're going to have a lot of information packed into this, including all the investigative formulas that people need to learn, evidentiary formulas that people need to learn, stuff that the FBI has taught for over 100 years, since 1908. And also some stuff that's tweaked by me, John DeSouza, that's also changed around so people can learn how to resolve, how to uncover the truth behind crimes, mysteries, and even everyday situations where we are confronted with enormous deception. enormous deception, and so that people can learn how to tell the future, how to resolve these things, and how to know what's going to be happening in the near future, which sounds really out there, but it's really what you can do. That's what you can accomplish with these sorts of things. And so we're going to be learning all these things, and we're going to be packing tremendous amounts of content into this very short period. So it'll be something for people to enjoy, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there on August 1st, 2020, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific time for the Truth Investigator Workshop. It's going to be pretty wild. I guarantee you, we're going to be going way out there, way out there. It'll be good for people.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to be signing up for sure. So you'll see me in there.
Awesome, Justin.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and just to circle back to the intention again, really is that if we're going to be these truth investigators, which is what most of us are in this community, trying to sort through what the truth is, whether it's like where do we come from, our galactic history, our ancient history on Earth, or what the truth is about UFOs, or what's the truth about this sex trafficking ring, global ring that's being exposed, it's important to check our emotions for a minute and actually use these tools and techniques to figure out what is real and what isn't, so that we can go forward and start telling people the real truth instead of all this disinformation. Someone told me once that if there was going to be a community that would be the most infiltrated on the world, it would probably be this conscious community, especially when it comes to the UFOs. We're talking about where we came from, our ancestry to the cosmos, advanced technology, eliminating the petrol, eliminating fossil fuels, so many things that the elite of the world are actually own in order to maintain their power. So it makes sense that there would be a lot of disinformation within the community so that all these things that are empowering do not come to fruition. So it's important for us to take a step back, use certain tools and techniques, and to figure out really what is real and what isn't. Right, John?
Absolutely. Justin could tell people more about this, but the very first fascist empire that we had in the modern media era was the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. Soviet Union was the very first completely fascist empire that had rule over hundreds and hundreds of millions of people across the Soviet Union and the republics, socialist republics. And so a lot of these techniques that we are confronting today are really originated during the time of the Soviet Union, when people were combating this complete information control in this media milieu that we have today, and where the news was utterly controlled by Soviet authorities, and every bit of information was controlled by Soviet authorities. And the only way people had to fight back against that, which really showed itself in the 1980s, was to turn off all Pravda information outlets, to turn off the newspapers, turn off the evening news, to turn off everything. And they did it. They did it by the hundreds of millions. They did it. And so people started noticing that at 6 p.m., all across three time zones, there were millions and millions of people who were out always walking their dogs at the same time. Walking their dogs all across the Soviet Union. This became known as the Dog Walkers Rebellion because it was a nonviolent rebellion. And it was really, and if you know anyone from Soviet republics who was alive during that time, they could tell you about this. And so what happened was all these people would congregate in these dog parks, and they were not punished or surveilled by KGB because they had a natural, ordinary excuse to be around each other. And so even if they were surveilled, it was okay. And so what happened was at the 6 o'clock hour, everywhere across the Soviet republics, people would go out and they would just talk with each other. They would pass rumors, try to get any bit of information from the West, which would be more reliable than 2 hours of news from the Pravda at 6 o'clock. So it became something where people just started sharing this information and talking with each other. and they took the opportunity to be able to pass news to each other, citizen journalists. And like what we're seeing today here in the United States, because the United States, because the global authority, basically, which has complete power over all media and all information, is just as powerful today in the United States as it was in the Soviet Union in the 1980s. So we're going through that dog walkers rebellion right now, where we are with citizen journalists, each other, helping each other with information, real information on what's really going on, as best as we can figure. And so we need to continue that, and we need to realize that, just like General Flynn said, you know, we are the news now, and we are the digital soldiers that need to be out there combating this fascist information control system that we have been living under in the United States for a very long period.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. You know, it's the second time during this interview you must have just like telepathically made a link with me, because I was just about to ask you about General Flynn.
It's the beard. It's the beard.
It's the beard. Yeah, exactly.
I feel its power. I feel its power. Yeah, you know, General Flynn is just, he's out there, and you know, and so many of us admire him so much because he started this war way back in 2015. In 2015, when he made the announcements of the digital war that was to come, and the digital soldiers that were already impressed into service, and then how we were all going to be working. And you know, and the difference between in this entire war is those of us who operate in the clear under our own names. You know, where we represent at a different level than the Anons. The Anons have a much better situation. They're like the militia that can shoot from the forest cover. You know, so they can shoot from the forest cover, and they're covered. But we, you know, people like Justin and Neil and myself, we're in the open. We're in the open. So it's like, so we have to press forward even harder than the Anons, and we have to push this stuff forward because this is a global war. This is a global war that we're in, and we're on the side of the alliance of nations that is trying to overthrow this cabal, this globalist system that has had domination over us for so long that we are in the process of overthrowing right now. So we've got to push forward as hard as we can, always as far as we can. So also.
Yeah, great points.
Beautiful. So everybody, we are extremely excited for John DeSouza's workshop that's going to be on August 1st. Please do check it out. And we just want to kind of give everybody a little briefing of the event that we just did together, Ascension, Exopolitics, and Disclosure, where you, Laura Eisenhower, Michael Sala, and myself. That was an epic event. When you agree, it was like 9 hours straight of all of us. Michael was on the whole time. Laura was on the whole time. John was on the whole time. So everybody was listening to everybody's presentations, which doesn't happen a lot at conferences. And so everybody was building on each other. We ended up with an amazing discussion. And the panel discussion, I'm going to put on YouTube for free for everyone, because it was like rapid fire questions. I think we answered like 50 questions in that hour and 10 minutes. So that is really beautiful, valid information that people can check out on our YouTube, youtube.com/portal-to-ascension. But I want to end it kind of how we ended that one, John, today. We were talking about the fact that this is very heavy, and we just had a couple of comments in our Facebook here saying, you know, very heavy information. Thank you so much for actually addressing it, right? So it's very heavy, but as we spoke about, the Ascension, Exopolitics, and Disclosure Conference is the ultimate goal is this spiritual evolution, this ascension, you know, the evolution of consciousness. So there's a lot of heavy topics that we need to deal with in order to get to this world that we know is possible. So what do you foresee? And please leave us with some words of encouragement and empowerment on what you see in your atmosphere right now, on some positive things that we're going to be expecting to come very soon.
You know, what I see clearly is that we've already won. We're in the timeline where we've already won. And that gets exposed every day by the incredibly desperate moves that the cabal does all the time, that we see in front of us. Look, the cabal is giving up a lot of their most important, most valuable assets all the time. Assets that have served them for dozens, for many, many years. And they're sacrificing them all the time. Because, as we know, I think Justin was mentioning this before, this Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein, they were not the only blackmail operation that was working for the cabal. There have been many others. We now know that it is alleged that Hugh Hefner was a honeypot blackmail operation for the cabal for many years, for Hollywood. That he functioned in that role, working for the CIA as well, and he collected mounds of material to compromise Hollywood figures and figures in every area of life. The same is true for Harvey Weinstein. He was a person who was supposed to compromise women throughout Hollywood, and he did that. He did that very well. And there were several others. There were several others that were supposed to go against, for instance, the homosexual community, and that was other figures I don't recall their name right now, and they did their job. So just the fact that the cabal has sacrificed these extraordinary assets that have produced for them so much over the years, and yet they're just giving them up, it shows how desperate they are. And the only reason they would be that desperate is because they know that we are in a timeline where they are defeated, completely and utterly defeated. And that's what I want people to know. That's what I want them to remember and to know from every time, from listening to me, every time that I talk, because I will always reassert that to people, no matter where I go. It's very important.
Amen. Yep, definitely happening. We are on a positive timeline, I would say.
Definitely. John, beautiful brother. Thank you so much. We're just going to keep moving forward, and just keep exposing truths. And I am with you 100%. And that's why we do this, all three of us here, because not just because we're exposing things that have gone wrong, but we know what is possible and the future that we can create from this can be beautiful. And Absolutely. We're just going to keep moving forward and create that reality. There's no reason not to. It's happening now.
And please remember to go to portaltoascension.org. Or to my site, johntemmelbooks.com, for tickets for the August 1st Truth Investigator Workshop. That's coming up real soon. That's important stuff.
John, appreciate you so much, brother. We'll be seeing you in a couple of weeks for the workshop.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, John. Great to talk to you again. Awesome. See you soon on that workshop. Looking forward to it.
Cool, man. See you then.
Take care, brother.
Right. Take care. Thanks.
Amazing. Always good to have John on and get some insight. I love how everything really happens intuitively when we create the shows. Like we just chose to have John on now, and everything that happened, we chose to have John on a few weeks ago, but everything happened since then has really just been perfect to actually bring up right now and with John, right?
Oh, totally.
So I hope everybody enjoyed the show. We have a lot of people joining us right now that probably have not checked out our show before. We have like 70 people at a given time on Facebook. So do remember that Awarewolf Radio, we actually have an iTunes. We're on Spotify. We're on Pandora. Check out all of our past episodes there. We have some amazing information. We did a lot of updates during the coronavirus, but we've had on guests such as Mary Rodwell, Billy Carson a few times, and Laura Eisenhower and other people. And we do go live every 2 weeks at 4 p.m. Pacific on Wednesday. So the next time we're going to go live is in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, happy that everybody joined us. We got a lot of good information. I mean, to your point, Neil, I had no idea we were even going to talk about any of this stuff until I called you today, and it just flowed beautifully. And so, it's in my thinking, I'm a spiritual person. I really do think when you follow the truth, when you carry the torch of truth, when you try to do what's right in the world, the universe conspires to help push you along and support you. So, I mean, beautiful. Yes, so
exactly. So do check out Stillness in the Storm, www.stillnessinthestorm.com, Portal to Ascension, portaltoascension.org. Justin has a series on Edge of Wonder. Check that out, edgeofwonder.tv, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then Portal to Ascension, we're releasing a new website within a couple of weeks. It's going to be phenomenal. I'm so excited. It's like 10 years in the making, really, to make this site like it is now. We have our Android app, we have our iPhone app, we have the smart TV app, we have a Roku app. So we're going to have all of these different platforms and ways in order to get you valid, amazing content right now. And what I like to say is Portal to Ascension is like a one-stop shop for consciousness. So as people are waking up, we've curated a lot of information on many different topics where you can come to this platform and get the download from, the basics of science and frequency and how the laws of the universe work, all the way to ancient history and deep esoteric scriptures and Vedic knowledge. So portaltoascension.org, you can sign up there and view any of the footage. And then also we are going to be doing the Portal to Ascension conference this year, but online. And it's going to be a five-day event, October 1st to October 4th, 50 amazing revolutionary speakers on a range of topics, 40-minute segments each, 100% free event with the option to donate. So you can donate if you want, but we're going to do it for free. We're going to broadcast to 9 YouTubes, Justin, and 10 Facebooks.
Holy cow.
So we're going for like the 10 to 20,000 people live kind of thing. And I think during October, right, when we're going to have some sort of awareness of where we're going next, hopefully by then.
Hopefully.
It'll be perfect for all these amazing minds all over the world to just get together online and set the energy, clear the energy, speak about what's happened, speak about the lessons that we've gained from this, and now what we can do in order to make a positive, empowered future.
Wow. Looking forward to it. Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Justin will definitely be one of the MCs interviewing that day.
That's right. Awesome.
All right, everybody. This is Neil with Portal to Ascension.
This is Justin for Stillness in the Storm.
And thank you all so much. Love you all.
Love you all. Take care. Until next time.
See you later.